Hey everybody, happy Wednesday. Happy Wednesday evening live tutorial stream. So, surprise! We are not having a torch-fired metal clay class tonight because I swore that I had fine silver metal clay, and in fact, I have sterling silver metal clay, which you cannot torch fire. So the difference there is that fine silver metal clay is $9.99, pure silver and sterling clay is $9.25, and the rest of that content is base metal that will oxidize, so it needs to be fired in an oxygen poor environment. I, however, do not like to exist in an oxygen poor environment, so it has to be fired in a kiln. So, and of course I realize this at absolutely the last possible second, so I'm swapping in something else. And something that is actually useful. Okay, it's driving me crazy that the opals and the rubies are the same length. Now that I've knotted all these necklaces, I just want to knot like all of my everything, so I think the opals are next in the knotting parade. Okay, so what I'm going to do for you guys tonight instead is I'm going to show you how to make your own heavy gauge jump rings. And there are a couple of reasons that this is a helpful thing to know. I think the most important for the procrastinators among us, talking about myself, is a lot of times if you're doing a project at the last... Did I just lose everybody because I said I wasn't doing metal clay?
No.
Okay. My viewer count dropped from 8 to 1.
You know that your viewer count is not always...
I know my viewer count is batty, but come on. Like, you know, do me a solid, reporting software, and, you know, stop being a pain. Anyway, so yeah. So, if you're doing a project at the last minute, as I often do, and I have a feeling that there are a couple of you who probably have done last minute projects as well, it's nice to be able to make a jump ring if you don't have one that's the right size, whether that be a function of the diameter of the ring that you need, the gauge that you need the ring to be, or both. And the other reason is it's difficult to find commercially manufactured heavy gauge jump rings that don't cost an arm and a freaking leg because they're heavy. But they're very easy to make yourself, so you can just stock your... I totally just smacked myself in the face with that wire. So anyway, you can just stock the heavy gauge wire and then make your own jump rings. And so the project... What happened?
There's a spill. I don't know what it is.
Do you need to trade out and have me clean up? Okay. So, for my demonstration project tonight, I don't know, some of you who are Zoomers and such would probably been party to my lost items of the past few weeks, and one of those items was the components for my mother's bracelet for her birthday, which have been found. Unfortunately, my mother's birthday already passed, so I made her something else. So this is now turning into a Mother's Day bracelet instead of a birthday bracelet. But there are all of these, because my mother loves bells, and so these are all the harmony balls, little ones that jingle, make pretty noises. So I'm going to make her a whole bracelet of these harmony balls, but I can't solder them on for a couple of reasons. Number one, this one has stones in it. I don't want to bust the stones. Second of all, the jingle is actually made by this really fine coil of wire inside of the sphere, and I have fears that if I put heat near these, that I'm gonna make them unharmonious. And that is the complete opposite of the whole point of this bracelet, because it's supposed to jingle. So if I make the jingle go away, then, yeah, again, really no point. Then it's just a bunch of silver balls on a bracelet. I think for uniformity, I'm going to remove the bail that is on each harmony ball because, of course, they're designed to be worn as pendants, because most people don't want that much jing on their wrist, but, you know, most people aren't my mother. But I actually think it's going to be really cool. I'm basing this on a vintage bracelet that I saw at the jeweler across the street, Susan Saffron. If you're in Dallas and you need fine jewelry, I highly recommend Susan Saffron. She's got great stuff, and she has some cool estate pieces sometimes. So there's actually an estate bracelet that is, of course, 18 karat gold, and has a lot of kind of similarly textured baubles hanging off of it, and I just love it, and it costs more than my damn car. So obviously my mom's not getting that for any holiday ever. But that was kind of my inspiration behind this, and she totally fell in love with this little spiky one in Tucson, so I am excited about giving it to her. For my base, I'm going to be using the chain that I made not that long ago on stream. And I'm thinking, and so I think going to have to make a couple more links on this chain to make it long enough for her, which is fine, because with my jump rings I'll be able to just take these back off when it's time, add a few more links onto my chain, and I can even make those links tonight while I'm showing you how to make jump rings, and then solder it together, and I could even do that for you tonight too. Hey, look, so many possibilities. And then throw the thing in the tumbler. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut these bails off of these little harmony balls, and I would like to be able to reuse them, because this is the cool thing about soldering, is that I can cut this bail off of, okay, what the heck happened to my camera position over like the weekend? Like what beads were in here partying with my camera? The narblings were at it. Okay, so I can reuse this. I can solder this back together and reuse it, or I can solder it onto something and reuse it. But I do want to cut it cleanly. The more cleanly I cut it off, the easier it's going to be for me to reuse it. So I'm just going to take my flush cutters, and I'm going to go in there, and right at the point is a good place to snip, because if I'm soldering it onto something, that's where the solder will be. So that way I don't have a big ugly solder joint like up here where everyone can see it. And I'm just going to give that a nice easy snip, and then use my pliers to pull that off. Now I'm going to have to file that if I want to reuse it, but it shouldn't be that difficult to just file that back, and then I have a usable bail. Sally's like being stealthy here with the champagne pour. It's a good skill set.
Wow. Stealthy champagne pour?
Stealthy champagne pour. It's apparently a thing. It should be an Olympic event. Sally would totally win.
She would, except for the fact that she was called out on the internet.
Well,
But other than that,
I was calling out her mad skills.
That's fair. That is fair.
Okay, I need to stop trying to wear that necklace. Stop. Yes, we have two of our lovely clients here, Sally and Linda. Linda, who is occasionally on the stream, except she's not on the stream this evening because she's here drinking champagne and beading. Okay, so alright, so now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to remove the bails from all of my little jingle balls, and I'm going to put them hopefully somewhere. I swear, something is cattywampus with my setup here. I'm afraid if I move one thing though, that everything is just going to come tumbling down. So I'm probably just going to be wise and not mess with it. Okay, so I'm just going to remove the bails from all of these. So yeah, anybody who was hoping for torch-fired metal clay tonight, I'm really, really sorry. I really thought that the envelope of metal clay that I had in my basket was fine silver, and it turns out it is not, so I'm really sorry about that. We will still be doing the riveted pearl ring tomorrow though. So that should be fun. And hey, we might still get the torches out tonight to add some to this chain. So once again, I'm going to make some heavy gauge jump rings. I'm going to use them to attach these to this chain. So we're going to talk about, and you guys have seen me make jump rings on the fly before, but since I've decided that this is an entire tutorial on making your own jump rings, we're actually going to make them properly, because a lot of times I will slapdash it, especially if I'm in the middle of a tutorial, and I'm trying to get to the end, and I'm, it's, you know, just one of 17 things that I don't have time to explain. So let's talk about tools that you use to make your own jump rings. Anything cylindrical will do. Of course, my favorite tools for making jump rings are these. These are called bail making pliers or wrap and tap pliers. So they've usually got anywhere from 3 to 6. This one's got 6 different sizes of cylindrical barrels, and the reason that the barrels are cylindrical instead of cone shaped like your regular round nose pliers is so you can make a consistently sized coil. Now you can make a consistently sized coil on a round nose pliers as well, it's just not as easy. It takes a little bit more finesse. This is much easier to manage. And then of course, as you can see, the barrels are a little bit bigger, or can get a little bit bigger than your typical round nose pliers. If you don't have those, or those are not available to you, your simplest tool is going to be like a little mandrel like this. This is, it's like a bezel shaping mandrel, but you can also use this to make jump rings. The pliers are easier because they've got a built-in facility to hold your wire. If you're making them on a mandrel like this, you know, you're going to have to use one hand to hold, one hand to coil. But once again, if you're in a pinch, this will work. Or any cylindrical object. And here is a trick if you're using a wooden cylindrical object, and this is just a nasty old solder pick, you can actually drill a hole into your wooden object, and then you can insert the end of your wire into that hole, and then use that to hold your wire as you twist your mandrel to make coils. Now, something that, there's the stream sniffles, something to remember, and I've said this repeatedly in wire tutorials, and I'm going to keep saying it until the end of time because it's true. Even if you're using dead soft, your wire is always going to spring up a little bit bigger than the size of whatever you're using as your form. So, you know, this solder pick is going to make a jump ring that is slightly bigger in diameter than the pick itself. So you need to bear that in mind. Since I'm going to be using these to attach my sparkle balls, not my sparkle balls, my jingle balls. Hi Corvus! We're not doing torch fired metal clay because I don't have the right kind of clay. I thought I did, but I don't. So we're doing jump rings instead. And jingle balls. So anyway, yeah. So I don't want a huge ring. I don't want it to pull focus. So I need a ring that's big enough, obviously, to go around or through that hole, that little loop, and attach it around here, and give it enough room to have motion and swing. But I don't want it, so I don't want it to be too small because it has to have motion and swing. I don't want it to be too big because I don't want it to pull focus. I do want it to be nice and thick, so I'm going to use 16 gauge wire because bracelets get a lot of abuse, and then this one's going to have stuff jangling all around it, and so it's, you know, going to need to be even sturdier because it's got all of these baubles on it. Once again, I'm going to be using the chain, the soldered chain that I made in class a while back. I am going to have to add some links onto this chain, so I might actually go ahead, like I said, and do that tonight as well, if I have enough 16 gauge wire. This might be 14 gauge wire. What the hell gauge wire are you? Okay. Oh, you know, I could, okay, so here's another, so this is turning into a problem solving stream. Okay, so I don't think I have any of the gauge of wire that I used to make this chain, but what I can do is I can take my 18 gauge wire and I can make a slightly smaller kind of trailing off extender that's like 1 inch long, and then put a little bobble on the end of that. I think that's going to work really well. Yes, clay next time, Soonish, for sure. I will order the right stuff and I will put it back on the menu. I promise. So yeah, okay, so that problem is solved, and I will try and I think I've got all my soldering stuff within arm's reach, so I can actually do that for you on stream tonight, though it kind of depends on how long I chit-chat, because we are, of course, doing a chit-chatting stream tonight. Heather and I were going to be on back at 7:30. We're going to be talking about times when we were forgotten or thought we were forgotten as children. And possibly this might also segue into school bus stories. And also maybe why I finally have a piece of graphite coming out of my finger after 43 years. So, All right, so I'm gonna use my bail making pliers, and I'm gonna pick, okay, and I'm gonna use this hefty ass wire, because I really do not want, these things, these are sterling, these were not cheap. I do not want my mother to lose these off of her bracelet, so I'm going to use this thick piece of wire, which I think is 14 gauge. Oh, not yet, Corvus, but thank you so much for sending me all that great information. And you know, I was homesick on Monday, and I totally could have spent the day working on that, but I had the worst migraine. I couldn't look at screens, but I will do it. Okay, so what size jump ring do I want to make? Okay, also a few more things to know about jump rings in general. So for any given gauge of wire, the smaller the jump ring is, the sturdier it actually is. But when you're using something as thick as a 14 gauge, obviously if you try to make too small of a diameter jump ring, like it's going to be like a freaking donut. Like there literally isn't going to be enough room in the middle for anything to go through it. So when you're using your heavier gauges of wire, you kind of have to try and find a happy medium between, you know, not making a giant jump ring, making a jump ring that's strong or small enough to be strong and sturdy, but big enough to be functional. So I am going to try this one. Well, I am better today. I was feeling so poorly on Monday, I took a day off of work, which is not something that I do often. But I don't think I was actually ill with a germ. I think it was a combination of exhaustion and the worst allergies ever. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and grab this in my bail making pliers, and I'm just going to start coiling this around. So the way you do this is you're just going to rotate your pliers and then loosen, rotate, grab. No, I will tell you about that in a second, Corvus. All right, and I want to, and I'm wrestling with this a bit, I want to put my next coil below the coil that I'm making so that I can make essentially an infinite number of coils, because it's going to just progress off the end of my pliers. So while I'm figuring out the size of this, okay, so some of you guys know that I had plans to try and gluten bomb myself on Sunday because I've been snacking on gluten-y foods recently and have not had any ill effects, and so I decided I was just gonna do it and eat pizza and a loaf of garlic bread. Okay, I think these are too big, so I'm gonna straighten this out. I'm gonna try smaller. So literally, Corvus, I fell asleep while the oven was preheating for my pizza. So I never got, because when I woke up, obviously I was tired, so I just went to bed. So no, I did not purposefully gluten myself on Sunday. So the allergy headache was just from like the other allergies in the world. But yeah, I took the falling asleep while the oven was preheating as a sign that maybe I shouldn't do that. So I still have the frozen pizza. I did in fact serve the bread to my lovely ladies tonight, and I was assured that it was delicious. But no, that experiment has not happened yet. Okay, so I'm liking this size much better. For this, remember what I said about not wanting it to be so big it takes focus. So I think that's a much better size. So I only need 5 rings. And I'm going to lose some when I cut it, so I need to do a couple of extra turns. And then this one at the end is wonky, so I'm not going to use that one. So 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so I got to go around a couple more times. But yes, so the great gluten experiment is yet to come. I will apprise everyone of the results once I actually do it. Ooh, you know, the thing about allergy shots is, like, did you have to go... money. Basically, that's what it breaks down to, is money. But yes, that's a good point. Okay, so now I'm going to trim these. Hey, Fenris! Welcome in. How's everything? I'm not doing torch-fired metal clay tonight. I'm doing jump rings instead because I did not have the right kind of clay. How are you? How's everything? It's been a minute. Okay, so now I'm going to cut these. So I've got my flush cutter. And so remember, when you're cutting a jump ring, you want to keep the flat side or the flush side of your cutters to the side of the ring that you're keeping. So in this coil, for my first ring, this is my waist side on the first cut, and the rest of the coil is the waist on my second cut. So I'm going to face that to there, and I'm going to cut. Set that aside, and then I'm going to rotate my cutters around so that now the flush side or the flat side of my cutters is facing towards the rest of that ring, and I'm going to trim. I'm good. Allergies here in Texas are trying to kill us all. Allergies in California are apparently trying to kill Corvus. I forgot to order clay, or didn't. Okay, I didn't forget to order clay. I thought I had the right clay for tonight's tutorial, and I did not. And I discovered that right before the tutorial, which is why we're doing jump rings instead. And, yeah. Alrighty. Alright, so there's my 5 rings. 5 silver rings, not 5 golden rings. And now, I'll check into it, Corvus. So yes, so what I'm doing, Kara, is I'm rotating cutters 180 degrees for each side of each jump ring so that I can keep both ends flush, so that way I don't have to file quite so much to get them flat. Because since this is a single flush cutter, only one side cuts flush. Now you can also circumvent that by sawing your jump rings if you want. Personally, since I don't have a bench pin and my jeweler saw permanently set up, I have to actually set them up. It's easier for me to just grab a pair of cutters and do it that way. But sawing would work just as well. So now what I'm going to do is, even though I have a pretty nice flush cutter, I still have to file a little bit because there's this little burr in the middle of the wire, which I don't know if you can see or not, and that needs to go away in order to have an actually flush jump ring. So I'm going to take my 2 chain nose pliers and I'm just going to twist that. You can hold it in your pliers, you can hold it in your fingers, you can hold it in a ring clamp. Kind of depends on how much you care about your nails. Since I already cracked this one and I need to replace it anyway, I'm just going to go ahead and hold it in my hand. I've got my regular. So we are going to be, well, we were supposed to use fire today, but I think we are going to use fire because I think I'm going to make a little chain extension for this because it's not quite long enough. So we're going to go ahead and just file that flat, and I'm actually filing it at a little bit of an angle. So if we're gonna go with like this right here, you know, I've got my camera set up in a new place and it's like I can't see my screen. You know what? I can move my screen. Duh. Maybe. There we go. There, look, now I can actually see what I'm doing. So if you're talking about this position right here would be like straight 12 o'clock, like straight to the top of the jump ring. I'm just kicking it just a little bit out to the side. And that's because when you're trying to close a circle, you want the outside circumference to be just ever so slightly bigger than the inside circumference to actually get a good close. And when you're using heavy gauge wire like this, you really do need 2 pairs of pliers to close your jump ring. Like trying to do it with your fingers is just a recipe for ouchiness. So I'm just gonna work this back and forth until it's closed. Yes, I'm gonna hold it up to my face because I can't see it over there because I'm that old. Also, by the way, Kara, how have you been? We have missed you. Okay, so I did not do a good job at that filing at all. My my angle was too steep, so don't go too crazy with the angles. So I'm just gonna real quickly course correct that, and then we're gonna get on to the next one. So this is important for a couple of reasons. Number one, if you're gonna solder your jump rings like the ones I'm going to make in a minute, you need them to be flush. Secondly, the more securely flush and closed your jump ring is, the sturdier it's going to be. Yeah, so much better. So the idea being that if you did a really good job, you should barely be able to see the joint. I don't know that that's how I would describe this jump ring that I just made, but we're gonna go with it. There we go. It was just a little bit tweaked. Okay, so this is a well-made and well-filed jump ring that could use maybe a little bit of extra closing. Yay! Awesome, Kara. And if you wanted to make this even sturdier, you could hammer it. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and just try and do the rest of these, maybe a little bit better. And then we're going to make some new jump rings for this chain, and we're going to solder them on. So we're just going to file. Yes, we have, the name is going to be the button list, Corvus. I need to take a photo of the narblings, because I want them to be on the cover as well with all the buttons. See, and sometimes less is more, because I did so much less work on this one, and it's so much better than the one I just did. Now, also part of that is because I was holding it where I could see it versus where you could see it, which I realized from a demonstration perspective isn't so great, but from a quality control perspective, it's much better. Alrighty. So, since I'm going to solder on to my chain, I'm actually not going to put, well, no, that's kind of I'll put one on, because I'm going to have to take it back off in order to put it in the tumbler. So I'm just going to shift that, and then file it. So these jump rings are filed well enough that I could solder them if the piece would allow me to, but once again, because of the stones in this and like I said, the delicate nature of the harmony balls, I don't think I can. But they are sturdy, so I will not have any concerns about my mom's jingle balls coming off of her bracelet. So, speaking of podcasting, Heather and I will be back, or I will be back with Heather, I should say, at 7:30 with our podcast, and so we're still trying to kind of, it seems like anecdotal works better for us than informational, so we're going to go with an anecdotal format tonight. We're going to be doing stories about when we thought we were forgotten as children. Forgotten meaning like left at a place. So we're going to, that's going to be our theme for tonight, and once again that's going to be around 7:30 back on this channel, twitch.tv/beading dream. Okay, so now I'm going to make, okay, so what I decided, the way I solved this problem, the way I think I'm going to solve this problem, because this bracelet isn't quite long enough for my mom. She likes her bracelets to be looser, even though she's got teeny wrists. It still needs a little bit of extra length, not a ton of extra length, but it could probably use another inch, and I don't have any 16 gauge wire right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a series of slightly smaller links that are going to kind of function like an extender off the bracelet, and so she can clasp into any one of those, and then I can make a little dangly bit off of the end. So that means that I'm going to take this coil of 18 gauge sterling silver wire that I have, and I want to make some rings that are smaller than this, but not so small that it's going to be difficult to clasp with this. So I'm thinking maybe that. Okay, so I'm just gonna make a coil with this 18 gauge.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm liking the size of that, so that's good. Once again, I only need about 1 inch, so that's gonna be probably about 7 links. I want to keep it an even number just because. Alright, so now let's see how many links I can get out of this. So once again, flat side of my cutters towards the part of my coil that is staying. Okay, and I can set the rest of my wire coil aside.
And so all I did was say, I can't come. And I told you all were dealing with it. I didn't tell anybody until Sunday. I just couldn't. I had to process it. I had to wrap my arms around it.
So then once again, I've got the flush cutter
What or what not was
facing towards the side of my ring that's staying. So in kind of a real-time motion is going to be that, and then rotate, and then clip.
so sad or upset.
So Corvus, so these rings that I'm making now, the 18 gauge rings, will be soldered, but the rings that I'm going to use to attach the jingle balls, I don't think I can solder those because first of all, this jingle ball has stones in it, and secondly, the thing that makes these jingle is a very fine coil of wire that is on the inside of the sphere, and I'm afraid if I solder it that I'm going to mess up that coil of wire somehow. So that's why I made these super hunka-chunka rings to put those on. Like, so look at the difference of, you know, the proportion of this ring that's not going to be soldered to the proportion of this ring that is going to be soldered. So these are much thicker and much sturdier, so these I think will be able to survive the wear and tear of being on a bracelet without being soldered and still be sturdy. But these 18 gauge rings are going to get soldered. These are going to be the extender chain on my bracelet.
So we'll check our links here Thursday next week.
So I'm trying to get a good...
I can.
My stupid thumb keeps getting in the way. There, let's do that.
Okay. The last I have right now is Tuesday. Okay. So I'm doing it like Okay. Good deal.
Okay, so I got 7 rings. Okay, so I think that's going to be long enough. Okay, so now I'm going to quick file these, and then I'm going to solder them and attach them to my bracelet. So if you remember, if you watched yes, thick gauge is definitely the way to go for no soldering, 100%. And once again, the reason that jump rings get such a bad reputation, and I've said this over and over and over again, is because people use jump rings that are too dinky for what they're doing, that are not of a gauge that will support what they're trying to support. They will use jump rings that are too small and don't offer mobility, because you have to have room for your piece to move, because your piece is going to move no matter what, and if your jump rings aren't big enough to accommodate that, it's going to literally force your jump ring a little bit more open every time it swings. So jump rings get a bad reputation because of user error more often than the fact that they're actually an unreliable you know, part of jewelry construction. Now, that being said, of course, don't ever crimp to an open jump ring if you can at all help it. And the fewer open rings you have in any piece of jewelry, you know, the more secure that piece of jewelry is going to be. But they're not inherently bad actors. Okay, so the first thing that we're gonna do is we are gonna solder 3 of these rings closed. So this is a trade, I'm not gonna call it a trade secret, but this is one of the things about making your own chain that makes your life easier, is you can actually solder half of the jump rings closed flat, and then use the other rings to attach them to your piece, and then solder those closed. So it's always easier to solder something flat than it is to solder it at an angle, like we'll be doing with the ones that we attach with. So this is gonna make your life easier. Also, I did such a good job of closing these that I can't even see the joints, so that's a plus. Okay, so there's 3 jump rings, and autofocus is like, what the hell are you doing? Sorry, I forgot my flux. Alright, so this should be pretty easy. I'm just going to go ahead and grab some solder and a flux brush. And I'm going to just go ahead and dab a little bit of flux on each of those joints. And they should come together pretty quickly because they're fairly well prepped. Ooh, that flux is pasty. Pasty like me. Okay, so alright, so I'm just gonna put this together real quick. I'm gonna grab a solder pick and a torch. Alright, here we go. So I'm just going to give each of those rings a quick heat, and then just grab some solder on my pick, and just drop it on the joint. There we go, there's 1, and there's 2, and there is 3. Okay, so oh, well, yes. I wouldn't say no to that. Uh-oh. Tallypet wants the salmon. Hi, Tallypet.
Tallypet, you gotta come visit us and you can have salmon.
Come and get it. You can have as much as you want. But hey, it's good to know people are paying attention.
Right?
Lori would also like some salmon, and it's smoked salmon.
It is.
Lori,
and
yes,
Linda did it herself.
Linda did it herself. She is a woman after your own heart.
She's a Minnesota girl. She's practically.
It's true.
Canada.
She's practically from Canada.
Exactly right.
Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to link these together using the rings that I have not yet soldered. Oh, whatever, you and your smoked everything that's about to start happening. Next time they have brisket on sale at the grocery store, I'm gonna get a brisket and try actually using the smoker part of my grill. Also, by the way, I don't know if I showed you guys this picture. This is the other day. Heather says hello the peoples. What was I showing you? It's Mamie on the grill station. Giving me the look. I know. I was out in my garden doing cleanup. I didn't do a whole lot on Tuesday because I still wasn't feeling great, but whoops, now my phone's on the floor. But yeah, lots of cleanup to do. Lots of things that froze. All right, so now I've got, okay, so this is what I meant by making like a smaller extender that's gonna trail off of that. That way it's not so much bulk right around the clasp. So now what I have to do is I've got to position all of these so that I can solder them, and that is gonna take a minute. So what I wanna do is I wanna position the joints of my jump rings so that they are not touching any of my other rings, because my goal here is to solder the jump rings closed but not solder them together. I still want this to be a free moving chain, and sometimes I find that I have to do that in a couple of sessions. Like I'm gonna have to do a couple and then I'm gonna have to move it, do a couple more. Okay, so there's one that I think I can get to, and there's one that I think I can get to, so I'm gonna go do those two, and then I'm gonna do, yeah, and I'm gonna do the other ones. So once again, I'm just gonna pick transfer. I'm gonna use the tiniest little bit of solder. Once I figure out, where did I put my piece of solder? Okay, so now we're gonna go ahead and blue 60s t-shirt and shorts weather in Canada. It's so funny. It's so funny to me as a Wisconsin girl, like all of the, not so much people not being in t-shirts and shorts in the 60s, but the fact that as soon as it drops below 40, all of the fancy Dallas ladies pull out their full-length mink coats and start wearing them, which is like, I feel like a little excessive for that temperature.
Below 50.
Yeah.
They're like, well, the air conditioning will still be on somewhere.
Just because, like, I mean, I remember, like, all of my coworkers when I was selling jewelry in Chicago, they all had full-length minks with they were Russian. They had full-length minks with, like, the tall collars, but it was, we were all taking the bus and it was, like, 20 below. So, yes, actually, that is an appropriate situation for that type of coat. But 40 degrees in Dallas, not so much, especially when you're not taking the bus, you're sashaying from your Mercedes into your lunch date. Alright, got those two soldered.
Aired at least once a year.
That's true. Okay, so I have two more. I've got this one, and I got that one. So, sorry, it's gradually like migrating off of the camera. Nope, wrong way. That way? There we go. Okay, so now I'm going to do that one, because that one's the easiest to get to. You gotta flux it, or it won't work. Well, that was the opposite of what was supposed to happen. So, you go. You go. Ooh, that's not good. That's really not good. Alright, so that's exactly what I didn't want to happen. I actually soldered the chain links to each other. So what I'm going to kind of try and do is reheat this and see if I can jiggle them and shake them loose. And of course the fact that this is all hot is not helping anything. So yeah, this section of chain might wind up, oh no, look. Magic. Yes. Alright, so I did it. It's wiggly again. So, what have I got? Alright, it's 7:15, so I should get off of this stream and get to my next stream. So theoretically I gotta solder that one still and this one. That one has solder on it, so let me just see if I can get one more done before I vamonos. Alright, I think that closed that up, did it? That's not the way it's supposed to look. Okay, so in trying to do that, I soldered these two chain links together, which is not ideal, so I managed to not only not progress, but I managed to go backwards. So, yeah, I think we're gonna call that done for tonight, but that is a brief demo of how you would solder that chain. Again, there was a whole tutorial on that a couple of weeks ago. I'm just gonna bring that off of here so it can cool for a second, and then I'm gonna put one of my little jingle balls on there, and then we are gonna call tonight's stream done. Tomorrow we are gonna be doing a legit torch stream. We're gonna be doing a riveted pearl ring, which is a really fun project. It involves pearls, drills, torches, and hammers. So, I mean, you're getting all of the good things there. And so to open these heavy duty jump rings that you've made, you need to use 2 chain nose pliers. Okay, it's almost impossible to do this with your fingers. You're just going to twist them open, take your piece, put your piece on your jump ring, grab the chain, which hopefully is cool enough to touch, put that around your chain, and then again you just want to make sure that you close it completely so that there is no space in between the sides of the jump ring. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to take this off of here because I need to finish soldering this and I need to put this in the tumbler, but that's how I'm going to attach everything back on once I'm done. Alright, so that was my surprise impromptu oops I screwed up stream. Thank you all so much for hanging out and watching. Hi Julie! We're actually, this is the tutorial stream running late. So now Heather and I get like a 15-minute break, and then we'll be back with the podcast / chit chat stream at 7:30 on Twitch and Facebook. So I just finished making jump rings by hand, big hefty heavy ones to put this bracelet together, and I managed to do a little bit of a soldering snafu here. I soldered these 2 links of chain together, which they're not supposed to be soldered together. They're supposed to be free moving, but I also decided that I've reached the point of diminishing returns on my soldering tonight, so we're going to finish that one tomorrow. Alright, so that is it for the tutorial stream this evening. We will turn this around as quickly as possible. Our last customer did just leave, so Heather is doing all the closing stuff, so we will probably be back between 7:30 and 7:45 with our chit chat stream, which is going to be times when we thought we were abandoned as children. I guarantee you it's going to be funny. Alright, everyone, we'll see y'all in a little while. Let's see, everything? Yes, yes. Okay, cool. Alright, we'll see y'all in a bit. Bye!